Hey, how's it going everybody? It's DJ Sketch and welcome back to the channel. And today we're looking at the console port of Ion Fury, the newest first-person shooter published by 3D Realms and developed by Voidpoint Studios. This is a game I've been looking forward to since its announcement back on the PC last August, and luckily it was worth the wait with the console port, so roughly 8 months behind. This is a game that looks, feels, and plays like it was literally ripped out of 1998, and I'm mostly juiced by how much this game packs in for being under a gigabyte of drive space. Let's handle the scandal and get into the meat of this robot smashing adventure. The story goes a bit like this. It's the year 2097, and 6 months after our main character Shelly Bombshell Harrison joins the Global Defense Force's Domestic Defense Squad in Neo DC, she has risen to the ranks of becoming squad leader. The streets ain't safe, and amidst the long-standing martial law, a new heavily armed cybernetic cult has emerged in the wake of chaos led by the infamous Dr. Heskell. In the game's 7 acts, it's up to you to shut down this robo-army and defeat Dr. Heskell for the prosperity of the free world. Sounds pretty simple, right? Well, this is a straight old-school FPS game from the same publisher that brought you Duke Nukem 3D, Blood, and the original Shadow Warrior on PC. Upon firing up Ion Fury, you're even greeted with the early 90s MS-DOS chime of Apogee's early titles like Monster Bash and the original Duke Nukem. This game also has one of the newest titles to be fully built on the build engine. Gameplay wise, what you have here is a no-frills blockbuster to the tune of all the OG FPS games you either grew up playing or may have played as a refresher course, and this brings the sensibilities of all those to the modern day. There's a ton of references here to nearly every shooter IP out there, and even has numerous callbacks to former 3D Realms titles as well. Even the opening title screen has the unmistakable sound of Duke 3D's grenade canister bouncing on the ground and into the splash image before it explodes, and even the splash image itself has huge callback to the original Wolfenstein 3D on PC. You start out with the Loverboy revolver and blast your way through roughly a couple dozen stages in the game's 7 acts. Gunplay here is fast, and if you're a fan of the past 3D Realms titles, you'll feel right at home with how everything controls and how quick everything moves. You get a decent arsenal of weapons throughout the game, including the shotgun, which doubles as a grenade launcher, incendiary submachine guns, which can be wielded either solo or akimbo, the crossbow, which can fire either 1 bolt or 5 bolts at a time, and the chain gun, which was the most fun to use, especially in the later segments of the game. I wish there was more of that. And you also get the bowling bombs, which can home in on enemies or be ignited for a bit of extra boom, and the cluster puck, which works as a throwable proximity mine. The combat overall feels great here, and there's even some platforming segments thrown in for good measure. This, as far as gameplay, is going to give you quite a challenge as with its old school sensibilities, and I think it's awesome for that. The AI here is also rather clever, and it's pretty sharp, so depending on what difficulty setting you play it on, they're either going to be very, very aggressive and deal a lot of damage. Also, they're going to do a lot of things to kind of shake things up for you. I don't want to spoil too much, but enemies, especially in groups at times, will also flank you and drive you out of cover, so movement is key throughout the game, especially on the last few boss fights, because staying still is nothing short of a death wish. Graphics wise, running on the build engine, it pulls a lot of stylish tricks with its 3D rendered backgrounds and sprite work. Even in true late 90s fashion, characters are drawn as flat pixels on the 3D backgrounds, which in itself is a pretty rad callback to all the games of the time. Movement is smooth for the most part, even though there was a glitch that I ran into quite a few times in this current build, which hopefully will get patched at some point, where it would flip my character around completely backwards, especially in heated combat scenarios. This was the only real ding I noticed as far as graphical and technical issues, but it was one that caused me to lose either tons of health or flat out got me smoked in the process. Character designs here also have a heavy nostalgia feel, likening back to the past revisions of characters we've seen before in 3D Realms games. Most of the ones I recognized were the cloaked cyborgs that look a lot like the enemies from Blood, and also the foot soldiers that also look like something out of either Shadow Warrior or Duke Nukem 3D. Honestly, this was some really cool character design here, and again, I thought it was fucking dope. Environments themselves also become quite varied and throughout the game, and you'll see a little bit of everything here as far as environments. You get rooftops to the subway, underground processing facilities, and a skyscraper, and eventually the lair of Dr. Heskell himself, which at that point in the game is out for, well, blood, I guess is the best way to describe it. Sound-wise, this also has a pretty dope set of attributes to follow suit with everything else. The soundtrack is awesome with a lot of varied compositions, from jump-up style drum and bass tracks to ambient, more atmospheric down-tempo tracks as well, so you got a good range of tunes to keep you moving through this little journey here. Dr. Heskell is also voiced by John St. John, also known as the voice of Duke Nukem, and him and Shelly's one-liners will honestly crack you up throughout the game's levels, and there's references to literally everything from 90s films, video games, and just about anything else you could think of. And when it comes up in commentary, it's honestly pretty funny. The Smashing Pumpkins reference from Heskell honestly made me chuckle a bit at least. And also the gunfire and explosions all sound nice and crunchy. The sounds of the bolt hitting the wall or a target is honestly extremely satisfying, and the bowling bombs, when they connect and jib your target, is not only a sight to be seen but also to be heard. An entire zone pretty much named after the Sneaker Pimps track 6 Underground, so there's a lot of referential cues that can be recognized throughout play. And also, just in short, the game's crushing it in the sound department. But with everything that was fire about Ion Fury, there were a couple things that made it not so great, even though this game for the most part was a blast to play through. Like I mentioned above, I encountered a glitch numerous times that spun me around in combat and often resulted in either a lot of damage or losing a life. This happened probably upwards of 8 or 9 times, especially during boss fights, which was a real bummer to be almost done with the fight only to be flipped around and shot in the back. I'm not sure if this was an issue that came up on the PC version, but the Xbox version did have this glitch, and it was a strange one because I saw it a lot. Also, the Xbox version seemed prone to crash, also a lot. This is one of the first games in a while that I've experienced several hard crashes, taking me all the way back to the dashboard. But it's also mostly happened in earlier sections of the game. It seemed like by Acts 4 and 5, the crashing issue had kind of went away for the most part. This also being a game that has a lot of its ideals mostly based on the execution of late FPS games from the 90s, it comes full bore with the difficulty too. Even on normal, your character can get bodied quickly, and mistakes, even slight ones, can come with a heavy cost. So the best advice I can give you while tackling Ion Fury is to save, and save often, especially before picking up crucial items like keycards. The autosave system can sometimes put you in some tight spots depending on how you were doing beforehand. So with that, I say again, save, and save again. And also a big one here too, the draw distance at times will cloak enemies that are far away, so you won't be able to see them, but oh man, can they see you, and they will open fire on your ass from a distance. And at time you're going to be sitting there wondering, where the hell am I getting shot from? But even still, even with that, I gotta admit that even the death screen is a pretty sick homage to Resident Evil 1 and 2, and which again, that part's pretty tight. And all in all, Ion Fury was a badass retro style first-person shooter with old and new school concepts and style. It's dope seeing a game that harkens back to the old school focal points of PC gaming and has a faithful reproduction into the modern gaming space. So hopefully this will lead to 3D Realms releasing and or publishing more games of this sort, or maybe we'll get lucky and get some remasters of Blood and the OG Shadow Warrior. Even with the technical issues, I still enjoyed this game a lot, and I highly recommend it to anybody that likes old school FPS games with a challenge. Ion Fury gets an 8 out of 10. If you found this review helpful, that's awesome. I'm glad you can use this as a resource, and check back again. We're going to have some more videos coming up here in the future, more commentaries and reviews and things of that sort. And hopefully 3D Realms will publish some more stuff like this, because this was honestly a blast to play through. Alright guys, I'll see you on the next one. Stay safe out there and take it easy.